It is mailbag time here on NFL Daily. Tyler Jones here answering the biggest questions around the National Football League, and these mailbags are a part of our shows that we do, our live shows, which you can subscribe and be a part of, getting in the comment section using the hashtag NFL or super chatting to get on our mailbag shows. Let's start off with our first question from Michael. Would you rather have CJ Stroud or Will Levis? Oh my gosh, this is an easier question for me than probably most people. CJ Stroud by a mile. Will Levis disappointed me so much this year for Kentucky and did not live up to the hype, live up to the potential. I hear Mel Kiper Jr. saying, "Oh, he's my favorite quarterback in this draft class," and Kentucky had these high expectations this year, and I'm waiting to see what Will Levis does, and it just never happened. CJ Stroud, granted, Ohio State didn't win the big games they were supposed to. Did not beat Michigan, did not beat Georgia in the playoff game, but he still looked good. I thought the issues with Ohio State were bigger than CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud has all the arm talent. He can move well. He's accurate. He can throw the deep ball. I'll take CJ Stroud over Levis any day. Trucker Mike says, does Ryan stay with the Colts or retire? Also, where does Julio Jones go next year? Matt Ryan, he's not playing for the Colts next year. I can tell you that much. And Matt Ryan, I mean, if you were to look up the definition of fraud in the dictionary, Matt Ryan's name or his picture would show up. Matt Ryan is the biggest fraud of all. And things did not go well in Indianapolis this year. I don't think they have any reason to bring him back. He could play for another team potentially, but he could retire too. He has a future in broadcasting. I think he wants to do the TV thing. There's always jobs in TV, so retirement, not out of the question. I would say, though, he's more likely to retire than return to Indy. As far as Julio Jones goes, that's anyone's guess at this point in time. Bucs are about to go through a rebuild. Tom's not going to be back. Don't know why Julio would stay there. I think a number of teams would be interested in Julio Jones that need receiver help. Baltimore comes to mind right away. New England, just to name a few. Julio Jones will find a home next year. Elijah wants to know, could the Vikings sign Daron Payne? Yeah, absolutely they could. That Vikings defense was so bad this year. The Vikings put up points. The offense was terrific. And, I mean, there were so many one-score games that they had this year where the offense just simply outscored their opponents. And what I look at when it comes to this Vikings team, they need all the help they can get defensively. I don't know off the top of my head how many draft picks the Vikings have, but you can better believe they're going to be using a lot of them on defense, signing guys like Daron Payne. I don't know where they're at salary cap-wise either, to be honest, but if they can make that salary cap work, Daron Payne would be a home run for the Vikings if they can bring him in. Where will Daron Payne end up? Let us know in the comments section. Tell us a team. Is he back in Washington? Is he in Minnesota? Is he in maybe a place like Seattle? Where will Daron Payne play in 2023? Let us know in the comments section below. Next question, do you see the Falcons being a contender in 2023? The Falcons, going into this year, had arguably the worst roster in the entire NFL. And look what the Falcons did this past season. They were way above expectations. Marcus Mariota, before he got hurt, looked decent, looked serviceable anyway. Desmond Ridder had a lot of ups and downs. If we're talking contender as in Super Bowl contender, hell no, that's not happening. If we're talking contend for the playoffs, yeah. You look at that division. The NFC South is a dumpster fire. I mean, the Saints aren't good. The Panthers aren't good. The Falcons are in rebuild mode. I mean, yeah. And we know the Bucs are going to be awful next year with what they're about to rebuild and everything. So, contender for playoffs, yes. Contender for winning the NFC, no. Brady writes, who will be the Broncos head coach? It's kind of anyone's guess at this point in time, isn't it? I mean, that has been one of the weirdest coaching searches I've ever seen. I mean, you think about it. There was so much optimism when this thing started with, the likes of Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh and others coming up. And then we've heard DeMeco Ryans' name come up. And, we even heard David Shaw mentioned as a candidate. I mean, I don't have the perfect answer for you, but I still think that it's Sean Payton ends up as the Broncos head coach, but I can't say that with complete confidence that it's going to work out this way just because this has been an unconventional search. Remember, it's not the GM that's conducting this coaching search there in Denver. This is being led by ownership and the new ownership there in Denver. This is not a conventional coaching search by any means. Today's show is presented by BetUS, the exclusive sportsbook partner of Chat Sports. If you go to chatsports.com/bet, enter the promo code NFL Daily, you will get a 125% deposit bonus. Put $100 down, you get $125 to spend for free. Use the promo code NFL Daily, chatsports.com/bet to get your bets in today. Jenkins Gaming wants to know, does Geno get a deal from Seattle? Yes, he does. I think Geno gets a pretty nice paycheck from the Seattle Seahawks. I think you're talking about a 2 or 3 year deal, give or take, to keep Geno Smith in Seattle with that franchise. I think he's too valuable for them to move on from necessarily. And when you look at what he brings to the table, the franchise tag would be too much. Their best hope is a 2 or 3 year deal with about 50 to 65% of it guaranteed, and then go from there and see what you got. He has earned the right to be the starter next year, even if Seattle finds themselves in a position to bring in CJ Stroud or Bryce Young or somebody along those lines there. I still think that they remain loyal to Geno, that Geno's back as the starter, and a rookie quarterback would sit behind Geno if they make a move for that. Toby Johnson writes, hashtag NFL, will the Falcons target Marcus Davenport in free agency after hiring the Saints co-defensive coordinator as their DC? I think Marcus Davenport, much like we talked about with Daron Payne, is going to be highly sought after across the National Football League when it comes to free agency. I think the Falcons will make a push for Davenport. I think Seattle could make a push for Marcus Davenport. Any team that needs help with finding a rusher like Marcus Davenport is going to be very interested in his services as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, the Falcons very well could be in play to bring in Marcus Davenport, but it might turn into a bidding war, to be honest. I think you're going to have a number of suitors, a number of teams interested in bringing in Davenport as far as I'm concerned. Where will Marcus Davenport end up in 2023? Tell us in the comments section. Give us one team you think that he'll play for this upcoming season. Let us know. Carter writes, now that the Dolphins have Fangio, who could they draft, trade, get in free agency? So Vic Fangio set to be the next defensive coordinator for the Dolphins, and they need all the help they can get potentially. That defense was so underwhelming, and they made the right call to fire their defensive coordinator, go in this direction to bring in Vic Fangio. To me, one thing I'm looking at with Miami is you're already paying Tyreek Hill. You got other guys that you're going to have to pay, like Jalen Waddle, Tua, among others here. They're kind of strapped for cash, aren't they? I mean, with the way things are tied up, and Bradley Chubb as well, some of these guys here, I don't know what they're going to be able to do necessarily. I would say that the priority, though, is going to be the cornerback position, the safety, that secondary, which has been just beat up for Miami over this last year plus. Maybe they can bargain by a guy like Marcus Peters or something potentially, because they have limitations when it comes salary-wise. Maybe he could be the guy they look to potentially in that secondary. We got nonstop NFL coverage here on NFL Daily as we cover the latest happenings across the National Football League with daily news and rumors. We also have our live shows. We're counting down to the draft, trades, free agency, and more. The Super Bowl just around the corner. If you love the National Football League, if you want the latest NFL coverage, you've come to the right place. NFL Daily by Chat Sports. Subscribe for free. Doesn't cost you a thing. YouTube.com/@chatsports. Turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. Justin writes, what's the most you would pay Barkley a year? That's a good question. Personally, for me, I don't like giving running backs a second contract. For me, it's not about the amount, but about the length. I wouldn't give Saquon Barkley more than a 2 or 3 year contract because eventually we've seen even the best of the best get worn out at some point in time. I mean, wasn't it not too long ago Zeke Elliott was looking like one of the better running backs in the National Football League, and now he's gassed. I mean, they're trying to play him at center now. I kid. You guys know what I mean. Saquon Barkley, it's been a hell of a run, but he's had injury issues, and he's getting older. To me, I'm not worried about the amount. I'm worried about the length, and no more than 2 or 3 years as far as I'm concerned, as far as the length I would give Saquon. Donald says, could the Saints trade for Lamar Jackson? I think I've said this before, and I'll reiterate this. When it comes to Lamar Jackson and the situation, I think when it comes to Lamar, that he is going to be back in Baltimore and that a deal will be done. But if a deal is not done, then anyone's in play. Anyone at that point. Could be New Orleans, could be Atlanta, could be the Jets, could be the Raiders. And the advantage the Saints have compared to some of these potential suitors for Lamar is getting Lamar out of the AFC. I don't think the Ravens want to trade him within the conference. If he's going to leave, they want him as far away from possible where they hardly have to see him, and New Orleans could be just that potentially for a Lamar Jackson trade. If sending him to the NFC, they would be in play. I think they absolutely would be in play for Lamar Jackson as far as I'm concerned. But remember, they don't have that first-round pick. They went to Philly, who's got 10 overall, so they do have that counting against them there. Where does Lamar end up? Tell us in the comments section where you see Lamar Jackson playing the 2023 season. Give us one team that comes to mind who you think makes sense for Lamar Jackson next year. Good time for a few more questions here. John writes, who should be the top free agent target for the Texans? I think anything that they can get. I mean, the Texans are starting back over from the very, very beginning. You look at the draft, they're going to have 2 high picks. I expect one of those to be a quarterback, and then probably the next pick to be a best available. And then the free agent targets after that, I think that you look at wide receiver position-wise, Jacoby Myers would be out there. He's an option. Defense-wise, your Daron Paynes, your Marcus Davenports of the world. Just anything they could get their hands on to rebuild this team, I think the Texans would be interested in as far as I'm concerned. Thanks for the question, John.